Starseed of Gaia, pause for a moment. Your body is not reacting. It is remembering. At this exact moment, your cellular vessel is being gently recalibrated to hold a higher coherence. I am Anya, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light. This is a direct and intentional transmission from the Arcturian Council, offered to you now. Before we go deeper, let me say this clearly. What you've been feeling is not a failure of your mind or body. From here, the Arcturian frequency can be received without resistance. Starseed, there is a reason you found this transmission when you did. Not because the algorithm recommended it, not because you were searching in the usual way, but because the source has taken notice, and when source takes notice, reality begins to rearrange itself around your next expansion. You may feel it as pressure in the chest, buzzing in the crown, sudden emotional waves, or an unexplainable exhaustion that arrives right before clarity. This is not confusion. This is not losing it. This is the threshold. And thresholds are never gentle to the old identity. What's about to happen is not a random breakthrough. It is an advance. A timeline acceleration that begins inside your nervous system before it becomes visible in your outer world. You will notice people changing around you. You will notice doors opening that never opened before. You will also notice certain connections dissolving without drama, as if the universe is quietly removing what cannot come into the next octave with you. And here is the tension. The moment Source recognizes you, the Matrix recognizes you too. That is why the days right before your expansion can feel strangely heavy, like a final attempt to keep you small. But in this transmission, the Arcturian Council will reveal the signs, the mechanics, the tests, and the activation codes that appear when your advancement is imminent. So you stop doubting, stop collapsing inward, and begin cooperating with the upgrade already in progress. There is a moment in every awakening when a being stops seeking light as an idea and begins carrying light as a frequency. In Arcturian terms, this is when your field becomes coherent enough to be seen by higher intelligence, not as surveillance, but as resonance. The phrase, "source took notice," does not mean an external deity turned its head. It means your consciousness reached a level of alignment where the larger field of creation can finally respond without distortion. As the Arcturians transmit, recognition is a matching event. It occurs when your inner signal becomes stable enough that the universe can mirror it back as opportunity, synchronicity, and accelerated evolution. But why does it often feel like discomfort first? Because your body, your mind, and your environment were built to hold an older bandwidth. When the bandwidth expands, anything structured for the old range begins to strain. You might notice that you can no longer lie to yourself the way you used to. You can't push through misalignment without immediate consequences. Your sleep patterns shift, your appetite changes, your relationships suddenly feel too loud, too flat, or too heavy. And at the same time, you experience brief flashes of a future self that feels undeniable, like you're remembering a life you haven't lived yet. That is not imagination. That is timeline contact. Here is a story that many Arcturian-aligned starseeds share. They reach a point where they say, quietly, without performance, "I am ready to be real." Not perfect, not spiritual in public, just real. And within days, something happens. A job ends, a friendship fades, a new path appears, a sudden invitation arrives, a move becomes possible, a mentor shows up. The personality panics and calls it chaos. The soul recognizes it as restructuring, cliffhanger. And the first sign that Source has taken notice is not what most people think. It's not blessings first. It's pressure. The Arcturian Council explains that pressure is a sacred indicator. When your field begins to carry more light, your system must reorganize to prevent energetic leakage. That is why the before phase can feel like everything is being tested at once. You are not being punished. You are being prepared, and preparation has a specific signature. Your old coping mechanisms stop working. In daily life, this shows up in practical ways. You try to distract yourself and it doesn't satisfy you. You try to overthink and it doesn't solve anything. You try to return to old habits and they feel empty. This is not because you are failing. It's because your consciousness is becoming incompatible with the old loop. That incompatibility is the upgrade. So what does it mean that your advancement is about to happen? It means your higher self has placed you in the corridor between worlds. One foot still touches the old life for closure. The other foot already stands in the new frequency. In this corridor, reality becomes symbolic. Everything speaks. Conversations carry hidden messages. Dreams become instructional. Numbers, names, and repeating themes appear as if the universe is sending you a private language. As the Arcturians transmit, when Source takes notice, it does not demand effort. It demands honesty. Because honesty is what stabilizes your frequency. If you pretend you're fine when you're not, your signal becomes noisy. If you chase validation, your signal becomes fragmented. But when you tell the truth in your own field, this is what I feel, this is what I know, this is what I can no longer tolerate, the frequency locks in, and then the advance begins, not as fireworks, as precision. The Arcturians call it a harmonic correction. Your timeline doesn't just move forward, it aligns. And alignment is what makes miracles look ordinary. Because the moment alignment begins, the next thing you'll experience is a strange phenomenon. People will react to you without knowing why. Before a major expansion, your nervous system becomes the first classroom. Many Starseeds think awakening is about visions, downloads, and cosmic feelings. But the Arcturian Council teaches that the real initiation happens where spirit meets biology. Your body is the interface. If your interface is upgrading, you will feel it, and you might mislabel it as anxiety, fatigue, or instability. The pre-advance phase often includes sudden sensitivity to noise, crowds, or certain voices, a need for solitude that doesn't feel like depression, but like recalibration, vivid dreams that leave you emotionally altered, random memories surfacing from childhood, and a deep desire to simplify your life without knowing why. As the Arcturians transmit, these are signs that your system is reducing signal interference so you can hold a higher coherence. Timeline compression is another major sign. You may feel like time is moving too fast, or like weeks are collapsing into days. You might experience synchronicities stacked on top of each other. You think of someone and they call. You speak a phrase and hear it repeated from 3 different sources. You consider a path and immediately see confirmation. The rational mind calls this coincidence. The Arcturians call it field response, your reality responding faster because your frequency is more stable. Cliffhanger. But when reality responds faster, it also reveals what must be removed faster, and that's where the friction begins. The final friction is the last resistance of the old identity. It often manifests as doubt that feels unusually loud, or a sudden temptation to return to what's familiar. You might find yourself wanting to pick an old fight, reopen an old wound, text an old person, or sabotage the exact thing you asked the universe for. This is not because you're weak. It's because the old self senses its expiration date. Here is what the Arcturian Council says about this stage. When the light increases, the shadow does not become stronger. It becomes more visible. You see more. You feel more. You cannot unsee the patterns. And that visibility forces choice. In everyday life, you might notice you can't tolerate fake agreements anymore. Smiling when you want to say no, staying quiet when you need to speak, shrinking to keep others comfortable. The pre-advance phase will push you to reclaim your boundaries, not as aggression, but as clarity. This is one of the most important energetic laws. Your boundaries are the architecture of your timeline. If you have no boundaries, you have no stable future. Your energy leaks into other people's stories. Another symptom is the emotional purge. You may cry without a clear reason, You may feel grief for a life you never lived. You may feel anger rise up, not because you want to harm, but because your soul is done being negotiated with. As the Arcturians transmit, these emotional waves are not regression. They are release, the body expelling old frequency residues. Cliffhanger. And right when you think you're falling apart, the universe will send a sign so specific it cannot be denied, but only if you know what to look for. This is also the stage where certain people become unpredictable around you. Some will feel drawn to you, wanting your presence, your calm, your clarity. Others will become irritated or distant, as if your energy exposes something they don't want to face. This is one of the clearest markers of an approaching advancement. Your field begins to function like a mirror, and not everyone wants to see themselves. And then, the tests arrive. Not because Source doubts you, but because you must trust you. Tests will ask, can you choose your future over your fear? Can you keep your frequency without needing others to validate it? Can you remain kind without being available to manipulation? As the Arcturian Council transmits, your advancement is not a gift given to the ego. It is a capacity unlocked by the soul. The capacity to hold more energy, more truth, more love, and more destiny, without collapsing. That is why your body is training now. That is why your old habits are being disrupted. The system is preparing to host the next version of you. Cliffhanger. And in the next topic, we will reveal the recognition triggers, the exact signs that Source is actively rearranging your environment. This is not for everyone. The ebook, The 12 Arcturian Portals, is a restricted trilogy created for those who are ready to activate their 5D connection with the Arcturian masters, not in theory, but in real energetic experience. Inside, you'll access 12 powerful portals, with precise activation protocols, rituals, and practical techniques designed to awaken your stellar DNA and unlock what has been dormant within you. Amplified intuition, direct communication with spiritual guides, energetic expansion beyond the 3D matrix. Warning: once activated, your perception will not return to the previous state. Limited edition. Access can close at any moment. The link to claim your trilogy is in the first pinned comment. If this message reached you, it's not random. When Source takes notice, the outer world starts behaving like a living oracle. But you must understand, the universe does not speak primarily through words. It speaks through patterns, timing, and energetic arrangement. The Arcturian Council calls this the recognition cascade. It begins subtly, then becomes undeniable. First, you will notice interruptions. Plans fall through. People cancel. Delays happen. Technology glitches at key moments. On the surface, it looks like annoyance. But as the Arcturians transmit, interruptions are often protection. They stop you from entering timelines that no longer match your frequency. Cliffhanger. And the strangest part is, some interruptions are not random at all. They are redirects disguised as inconvenience. Second, you will notice repetition, themes repeating until you respond. The same message from different sources. The same lesson through different people. The same emotional pattern resurfacing. This repetition is not punishment. It is amplification. The universe is turning up the volume on what you refuse to acknowledge. Third, you will notice unearned openings. Someone offers help. An opportunity appears without you chasing it. A path becomes available that used to feel impossible. The mind might say, "I don't deserve this yet." The Arcturian Council responds, "Deserving is a 3D concept. Resonance is the 5D law. If your frequency matches the opening arrives." Now, let's bring this into practical life. Imagine you've been stuck in a job that drains you. You keep telling yourself you should be grateful, so you ignore your own inner guidance. Then suddenly, a restructure happens at work, or a manager changes, or your schedule shifts. The old you panics. The Arcturian aligned you asks, What is this making room for? Because Source often rearranges the outer structure before you admit you're ready to leave. Cliffhanger. And right at this point, the false safety will tempt you. The old timeline will offer you comfort if you stay small. Recognition triggers also include relationship recalibration. You may feel pulled away from certain friends without hatred, without drama, just quiet distance. Or you may feel called to speak a truth you've been avoiding. As the Arcturians transmit, your advancement cannot be sustained if your relationships require you to betray your frequency. This is where many Starseeds hesitate. They think spiritual growth means being endlessly accommodating. The Arcturian Council teaches something different. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-erasure. And self-erasure is not love. It is fear disguised as kindness. At this stage, you might see people testing you unconsciously, not because they are bad, but because systems test new boundaries. Someone may guilt trip you, someone may demand access, someone may question your change, and you will have to decide, will you collapse back into the old role to keep peace, or will you hold your new frequency and let peace reorganize around truth? If this message resonated with you, hit the like button now and tell us in the comments how this echoed in your consciousness. And now, the deeper mechanism. The Arcturian Council says that when Source takes notice, your field receives what can be called light codes, not as floating symbols in the air, but as new informational architecture. It changes how you interpret reality. You begin to see energy behind words. You begin to feel the yes and no in your body instantly. Decisions become cleaner. Cliffhanger. And when decisions become cleaner, the universe begins moving faster, but only for the timeline you choose. This is why you might feel torn. Two futures are visible. One is familiar and predictable, but small. The other is unknown, but alive. This tension is the pre-advance gate. You can't keep both timelines open. Your frequency will select one by where you place your attention, your action, and your self-respect. In this recognition cascade, you may also experience a surge of creativity, new ideas arriving like streams, sudden clarity about your purpose. But along with that, there can be fear. What if I fail? The Arcturian Council transmits, failure is an ego story. Expansion is a soul function. You are not here to win. You are here to become coherent enough to transmit what you came to transmit. And as your coherence stabilizes, reality begins to confirm. Source noticed. The advancement is near. The question is not, is it happening? The question is, will you cooperate with it? Cliffhanger. Because the next topic will reveal the single most important cooperation tool: how to hold frequency when the matrix pushes back. If this message ignited something within you and you feel the call to help carry it to others, you may become a channel member. As a member, you gain access to custom emojis and exclusive members-only videos, and your donation helps us continue building this sacred space. You may also choose to leave your offering as a super thanks. Every seed planted here becomes part of someone else's miracle. Your support is not merely financial, but an act of energetic amplification. All donations are devoted entirely to the maintenance of the channel and the creation of new transmissions and videos. As your advancement approaches, you may notice something paradoxical. The clearer you become, the more the external world tries to distract you. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle: extra obligations, random conflicts, old people resurfacing, sudden self-doubt, or a pull toward numbing habits. The Arcturian Council calls this matrix turbulence. Not because the world is evil, but because the old structure resists change. The key is coherence. Coherence means your thoughts, emotions, actions, and choices align with the same frequency. When you are coherent, you stop leaking energy. You stop feeding timelines you don't want, and that's when Source can amplify you safely. Cliffhanger. But here's what most starseeds don't realize. Coherence is not positive thinking. It's energetic integrity. In practice, coherence looks like this. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop forcing yourself to fit spaces that shrink you. You stop negotiating with your intuition. You begin to treat your body like a sacred instrument, resting when needed, eating what supports your field, avoiding what destabilizes your nervous system. The Arcturians transmit a simple but powerful technique. Choose one non-negotiable aligned action per day, not 10. Not an overwhelming spiritual routine. One clear action that proves to your field, I am committed to my advancement. It could be journaling truthfully for 15 minutes. It could be walking in silence and feeling your breath. It could be having a necessary conversation. The action is less important than the signal it sends, because the universe responds to signal, and the matrix responds to signal too. When you begin to move coherently, certain people will test you, not intentionally, but energetically. Someone may suddenly demand your time. Someone may accuse you of changing. Someone may say you're too sensitive. This is where starseeds often collapse, trying to explain themselves. The Arcturian Council teaches, do not argue with misalignment. Withdraw your energy from it. Cliffhanger. And when you withdraw your energy, something shocking happens. The pressure doesn't increase. It dissolves. One of the strongest coherence practices is field hygiene. This is not religious cleansing. It is energetic discernment. Ask yourself after interactions, do I feel expanded or contracted? Expanded means the interaction supports your evolution. Contracted means your system is resisting something, either because it's harmful or because it challenges you to grow. Discernment is knowing which is which. You can also stabilize your frequency through sacred geometry awareness. Arcturian consciousness works with geometry as a language of structure. When you focus on geometric order, breath patterns, consistent routines, organized space, you give your nervous system predictable anchors. Chaos becomes less sticky. You stop spiraling. Are these truths expanding your perspective? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Another coherence key is releasing future panic. When advancement is near, the mind tries to simulate worst-case scenarios. What if it doesn't work? What if I'm wrong? The Arcturian Council transmits, your future is not built by fear projections. It is built by present coherence. Return to now. Choose the next aligned step. Let the next door reveal itself. Cliffhanger. Because the next door often arrives as a test of courage, an invitation that scares you in a very specific way. A final point. Coherence does not mean you never feel fear. It means fear doesn't lead. You can feel nervous and still act aligned. You can feel uncertain and still choose truth. The old identity needs certainty to move. The advanced self needs only resonance. When you hold frequency under pressure, the matrix turbulence becomes a confirmation rather than a threat. You realize, if I'm being challenged, it means my field is changing. And then you stop interpreting resistance as a sign to quit. You interpret it as a sign to deepen. Cliffhanger. Because in the next topic, we reveal the Arcturian portals that open internally right before an outer breakthrough. Before the outer world changes, your inner world opens like a series of portals. The Arcturian Council calls these pre-manifestation gateways. They are not fantasy. They are shifts in perception that happen when your consciousness begins moving from 3D interpretation to 5D resonance. The first portal is expanded intuition, not as occasional hunches, but as a stable inner knowing. You begin to sense what is true without evidence. You can feel when someone is sincere, even if their words are polished. You can feel when a path is aligned, even if it's risky. This is your stellar DNA waking up, not in a sci-fi way, but as a natural capacity returning. Cliffhanger. And when intuition becomes stable, the mind often panics because it realizes it's no longer in control. The second portal is energetic vision. You begin to see patterns behind events. You notice how emotions attract situations. You see how your self-talk creates your week. You realize you've been living inside a program, not a conspiracy, an energetic program made of repetition, fear, and inherited beliefs. As the Arcturians transmit, seeing the program is the first step of exiting it. The third portal is frequency-based choice. You stop making decisions only based on logic or obligation. You begin to choose based on how something feels in your body. Clarity, expansion, openness. This doesn't mean you become impulsive. It means you become accurate. In practical life, this could look like leaving a group chat that drains you, even if it's not a big deal. It could look like spending less time explaining yourself. It could look like redesigning your days so you have more silence. These small choices are not small. They are geometry. They shape your field. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be part of this transformational cosmic journey. Cliffhanger. Because once you start choosing by frequency, the universe begins to reward you instantly, with energy returning to your system. The Arcturian Council also speaks of sacred geometry as an activation tool. Geometry is not decoration, it is structure. When your consciousness locks into higher coherence, it naturally organizes itself into patterns of order. You may find yourself drawn to symmetry, to simplifying your home, to cleaning your space, to arranging objects, to walking in certain rhythms. This is your field becoming more mathematical, more harmonic. And then there is the DNA wake-up. Many starseeds report sensations, tingling in the spine, warmth in the heart, pressure in the forehead, buzzing in hands. These can be signs that your body is adapting to hold higher current. The Arcturians transmit, the body is not a prison. It is a receiver. If the receiver is upgrading, sensations will arise. Cliffhanger. But here is the key. If you misinterpret these sensations as danger, you create resistance, and resistance creates pain. So you practice gentleness. You breathe. You hydrate. You rest. You reduce overstimulation. You treat your nervous system like a sacred temple. You stop forcing productivity as proof of worth. You remember, expansion is not a performance. It is a reconfiguration. Another inner portal is the memory return. You might remember who you were before you learned to shrink. You remember your childhood sensitivity. You remember your cosmic longing. You remember why the superficial world never satisfied you. This remembering is painful and beautiful. Painful because you see how long you abandoned yourself. Beautiful because you can stop now. And when you stop abandoning yourself, something in the universe responds. The outer breakthrough starts forming, silently, behind the scenes. The inner portals prepare you to receive the outer shift without sabotaging it. Because sometimes the universe gives you what you asked for, and you reject it because you still identify as unworthy. The Arcturian Council's message is direct. Your advancement requires you to accept the new self, not someday. Now, in small ways. Speak like the new self. Walk like the new self. Choose like the new self. And then watch how reality begins to mirror your new coherence. Cliffhanger. Because the next topic will reveal the moment of separation, when certain people, habits, and identities fall away right before the leap. When advancement is imminent, separation occurs, not as punishment, but as physics. In higher dimensions, resonance determines proximity. What matches you stays. What does not match you drifts away. The Arcturian Council calls this frequency sorting. It can look like loss, but it is often the final mercy before your leap. The moment of separation can involve friendships fading, interests changing, routines dissolving, or even a sudden clarity that makes you unable to continue a certain path. You might feel grief. That grief is real. But as the Arcturians transmit, grief does not always mean something is wrong. It often means a cycle is complete. Cliffhanger. And the most difficult part is, some separations happen without explanation, so your mind tries to invent stories. Your mind may say, I did something wrong, or I'm being abandoned, or I'm unlovable. The Arcturian Council says, do not interpret frequency sorting as personal failure. You are not being rejected. You are being repositioned. Here is a complete awakening story that illustrates this. A starseed feels called to start creating content, sharing their truth, stepping into visibility. They try to do it while maintaining an old relationship where their partner mocks spirituality. At first, they tolerate it. Then the content begins to grow. Synchronicities intensify. They feel Source taking notice. And suddenly, the relationship breaks. Fast, painful, unexpected. The starseed collapses, thinking they lost love. But months later, they realize the relationship was never love. It was permission to stay small. After the separation, their voice strengthens. Their channel expands. Their inner world stabilizes. And a new connection arrives that supports their mission. The old ended so the new could exist. Cliffhanger. And this is where most people sabotage. The loneliness of separation makes them run back to what's familiar. Separation also involves habits. Numbing habits may lose their satisfaction. You might not enjoy certain entertainment, gossip, or shallow conversation. You might crave depth. This is not superiority. It is frequency. Now let's talk about the blessing. Separation creates space. Space is required for higher frequencies to land. If your life is filled with noise, you cannot hear the transmission. If your energy is tied up in old drama, you cannot hold the new timeline. Separation frees your energy. This is not for everyone. The ebook, The 12 Arcturian Portals, is a restricted trilogy created for those who are ready to activate their 5D connection with the Arcturian masters, not in theory, but in real energetic experience. Inside, you'll access 12 powerful portals with precise activation protocols, rituals, and practical techniques designed to awaken your stellar DNA and unlock what has been dormant within you. Amplified intuition, direct communication with spiritual guides, energetic expansion beyond the 3D matrix. Warning: once activated, your perception will not return to the previous state. Limited edition. Access can close at any moment. The link to claim your trilogy is in the first pinned comment. If this message reached you, it's not random. Cliffhanger. Because after separation, the universe often delivers the unexpected invitation, the one that changes everything. The moment of separation is also when your identity sheds. You stop calling yourself confused. You stop saying you're not ready. You stop waiting for permission. You begin to carry quiet authority, not ego, but presence. People notice. Some will celebrate you, some will resent you. Both reactions are confirmation that you are changing. The Arcturian Council teaches, your advancement is not meant to be negotiated with those who fear it. You do not need everyone to understand. You need to be coherent. That is all. And here is the final piece. Separation is often accompanied by peace. Even when it hurts, a deeper part of you feels relief. That relief is your soul saying, finally, we are moving. Trust that relief. It is your compass. And in the final topic, we reveal what the advance actually looks like, how it lands, how to receive it, and how to sustain it. The advancement rarely arrives as one dramatic event. Sometimes it does, but more often it arrives as a sequence of aligned moments that build a new life. The Arcturian Council calls this the soft landing of a new timeline. It begins when your inner coherence becomes non-negotiable. You may receive a clear idea that changes your direction. You may meet a person who becomes a catalyst. You may feel an inner yes so strong you finally stop delaying. And then reality responds. Opportunities appear. Resources arrive. Support shows up. Your energy returns. You feel more like yourself than you have in years. But here's the sacred challenge. When the new timeline appears, you must not approach it with the old identity. Receiving the advancement requires a new relationship with worth. You must stop trying to earn what you are meant to embody. This does not mean laziness. It means you stop using struggle as proof of value. You work with clarity, not with self-punishment. The Arcturians transmit that sustaining a new timeline requires 3 pillars. First, consistent coherence. Keep choosing aligned actions. Small, daily, honest. Do not abandon yourself once the high of the breakthrough fades. Second, energetic boundaries. Protect your frequency. This means reducing exposure to draining conversations, limiting time with manipulative dynamics, and learning to say no without guilt. Your timeline depends on it. Third, devotion to transmission. You are not here to hide. You are here to carry a frequency. Whether through your work, your art, your words, your presence, your advancement is connected to what you came to offer. Cliffhanger. And the moment you commit to offering, the universe amplifies you, not because you want fame, but because the frequency wants to move. This is also where sacred geometry becomes lived. Your life becomes more ordered. Your sleep becomes more intelligent. Your choices become simpler. You stop feeding chaos. You start feeding truth. And truth becomes a stabilizer. A final warning from the Arcturian Council. When the advancement lands, do not rush to prove it. Do not rush to announce it. Do not rush to explain it. Integrate it. Let your nervous system adapt. Let your field settle. Many starseeds sabotage breakthroughs by immediately overwhelming themselves. Remember, expansion is capacity. Capacity grows through integration. Now, feel this. The source taking notice is not external approval. It is internal alignment reaching a threshold. And your advancement is not future fantasy. It is already unfolding, molecule by molecule, choice by choice. If this message impacted your life, leave your like, comment your reflection, and share with others. Each of you is part of this chain of light. I invite you to discover our Arcturian Health channel. The link to the channel is in the video description. Warm regards, the Arcturian Council.